The interpretation of narratives is to some extent subjective, because everyone can experience art differently. At the same time, using literary analysis, we can still explain the most reasonable meanings that the artist meant to convey or that the audience is likely to understand. To understand themes of any work of art, however, spoilers are involved. Heavy spoilers. So consider this your spoiler warning. Marvel Spider-Man 2, the third entry in the series by Insomniac Games, is an entertaining open-world action-adventure game that expertly fuses its core gameplay with powerful storytelling. In our first video, Part 1, we discussed themes related to what it means to be a hero for our Spider-Man. However, there are also other themes that are developed through different characters and motifs, especially the motifs of Mr. Negative's powers and the effects of the symbiote. In this video, Part 2, we are going to explore more personal themes and answer the question, how do Marvel's two Spider-Men demonstrate heroism in emotions and relationships? The first theme of heroism related to emotions and relationships is that of self-control, particularly over anger and violence. This idea of anger is developed at the beginning of the game when Miles is asking if Peter is angry with him. Peter responds that he generally never gets angry, which Miles seems to good-naturedly disagree with.
That one time we were playing a board game at your place and you kept losing.
I wasn't angry at you! I was angry at the universe!
Later, there are many points in the game where a hero must overcome their anger towards a person in order to save another. For example, as Spider-Man, Miles is very angry at Lee, but in a key moment, Miles exerts self-control over his anger and saves the people who need his help. Similarly, Yuri is very angry at the cult leader, the Flame, and she believes that he needs to be killed in a vigilante fashion for the better of the world. However, when she has an opportunity to chase him down and kill him, she gives up on this opportunity in order to save Spider-Man. This theme of self-control is most notably developed through the symbol of the symbiote. As the story progresses, it becomes clear that the symbiote affects its host, making the host more aggressive or violent. Each character that hosts the symbiote is affected in this manner. Peter, when he is affected by the symbiote, slowly gets angrier. His quips become less funny and more threatening. His perspective becomes less about justice and catching bad guys, and more about retribution and lawless violence. He goes from hero to anti-hero to villain.
Come on! You're stronger than this!
As Peter slowly loses control, Miles goes to help Peter, encouraging him to fight the symbiote and assert control over his own body, which he eventually is able to do. Mary Jane is also infected by the symbiote when Harry tries to use her to get Peter to join. MJ too becomes angry, attacking Peter violently.
You're Mary Jane Watson! You want the truth!
Like how Miles helps Peter, Peter too encourages MJ to fight the symbiote and assert control over her own body. This theme is repeated for Harry as well. By the time Harry regains the symbiote, he is very far gone, with very little control of what is going on. Harry is shocked by how he and Venom kill Kraven, signifying that he is not consciously making these decisions, but is instead led by his instinct and the symbiote. Peter and Miles encourage Harry to assert control over Venom, which he is only able to do long enough to let them know that he doesn't have much control over it. In the Bible, the Apostle Paul teaches Titus the importance of self-control over ungodliness.
Look at what you're doing! This isn't control!
I'm in complete control!
For the grace of God has appeared, bringing salvation for all people, training us to renounce ungodliness and worldly passions, and to live self-controlled, upright, and godly lives in the present age, waiting for our blessed hope, the appearing of the glory of our great God and Savior, Jesus Christ, who gave himself for us to redeem us from all lawlessness and to purify for himself a people for his own possession, who are zealous for good works. Like Paul suggests, it is the self-control of the characters that is heroic, not their lawlessness and anger. A second theme related to emotions and relationships is that of trust versus jealousy in friendships. In many of the relationships in the game, many of the characters wish they were more trusted by their friends and are jealous of the trust given to others. When Harry first recovers from his illness thanks to the symbiote, he re-enters Peter and MJ's lives quite suddenly. And not only does Harry rebuild his friendship with them, thanks to the symbiote he becomes involved in their superhero work, both in fighting Kraven as well as in researching the abilities of the symbiote as superpowers, and a way for Harry to join the Spider-Men in crime fighting. As this is happening, Miles slowly loses access to Peter, with Peter always saying that they will catch up later, and not telling Miles about important things in his life, such as getting a new job, nearly dying to Craven, or other serious issues.
But I can fill you in later. Hey, let me call you back. It's all happening fast, but we'll talk later. Gotta run.
Talk later. He says that a lot.
Miles is probably not feeling trusted, especially when Peter begins to not trust Miles with some task as Spider-Man, but says he must handle it himself.
He's mine.
When Miles is eventually forced to confront Peter, he reveals his hurt from Peter's neglect.
You don't even answer my calls anymore, man.
Even Harry feels Miles' jealousy, and when Harry is controlled by Venom, he doesn't hesitate to point out Miles' emotional woundedness. However, Harry himself is also experiencing much of the same jealousy, and not feeling trusted. Harry is jealous of his father's relationship with Peter, since Norman has always respected Peter's scientific abilities. While Norman has always shown love to Harry, Harry is still jealous of the respect that Norman gives Peter. Harry reveals this bitterness towards his father's relationship with Peter when he is influenced by Venom. When Harry initially found out about Peter being Spider-Man, he realizes that MJ already knew and that somehow he didn't, even though he knew Peter longer. And not only did MJ know, but Peter's newer friend Miles is the other Spider-Man, making him feel even more left out.
And that kid you're tutoring, he's the other one?
In fact, Harry becomes so jealous of Peter's special bond with Miles as Spider-Man that he views Peter trying to stop Venom's plan of spreading the symbiote as a breakdown in their friendship rather than the actual moral and existential crisis that it is, and demands to know why Peter doesn't trust his plan.
I trust you, Harry! Not that thing you're wearing!
While the Bible doesn't often talk about emotions and friendships, the book of Proverbs does mention jealousy and trust in different sayings. Wrath is cruel, anger is overwhelming, but who can stand before jealousy? Proverbs chapter 27, verse 4. Whoever goes about slandering reveals secrets, but he who is trustworthy in spirit keeps a thing covered. Proverbs chapter 11, verse 13. The authors of each of these proverbs state that people should not neglect their friends and cause jealousy, but instead should be a trustworthy friend. Peter should have trusted more in his friends to avoid causing jealousy, damaging not only his friendships but working relationships as well, something relevant to our third theme.
A lot of work to do. And as usual, looks like I gotta do it myself.
A third theme developed in Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is that of teamwork and not personal pride. The personal pride aspect is developed when Peter is more affected by the symbiote. During that time, he begins to think in a prideful manner. He blames Miles when Craven gets away. He insists that he is the hero and that others are incompetent. While Miles is humble most of the time, he too falls into this trap of pridefully focusing on his own heroism when his teammates are trying to protect him from going down a path of vengeance.
It's my job to protect y'all, not the other way around. I need your help.
In contrast, the idea of teamwork is captured through the constant use of the word together, as well as the constant suggestions that both Peter and Miles need help. At the beginning of the game, when Miles discovers the need to fight Sandman, he tells Peter that he needs help, even if this would humiliate him at school. When fighting Craven, Peter asks Miles to help in saving civilians.
Spider-Man, I need your help! Miles, I need help with these things.
When dealing with the symbiotes, Peter asks Miles to help him in the creation of a sonic weapon because of his sound tech interests and experience. As Miles is finishing up on Peter's requests,
Spider-Man! Symbiotes follow me uptown. Could use your help.
Miles calls for Peter's help to deal with the symbiotes in trying to stop him. The emphasis of teamwork also comes up with Peter and Harry's team name as the Spider Pals, as well as near the end of the game when Miles says that they are the Spider Team. Even in the podcast DanaCast, Danica encourages New Yorkers to work together with the Spider-Men as a team effort. In the book of 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul also describes church planting as a team effort in God's work rather than personal achievements to be prideful about. But I, brothers, could not address you as spiritual people, but as people of the flesh, as infants in Christ. I fed you with milk, not solid food, for you are not ready for it. And even now you are not yet ready, for you are still of the flesh. For while there is jealousy and strife among you, are you not of the flesh and behaving only in a human way? For when one says, I follow Paul, and another, I follow Apollos, are you not being merely human? What then is Apollos? What is Paul? Servants through whom you believed, as the Lord assigned to each. I planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the growth. So neither he who plants nor he who waters is anything, but only God who gives the growth. He who plants and he who waters are one, and each will receive his wages according to his labor. For we are God's fellow workers. You are God's field, God's building. 1 Corinthians chapter 3, verses 1 to 9. Like Paul describes in the Bible, while the Spider-Men are heroes, their efforts are not just a source of pride for themselves, but a team effort, which the Spider-Men should not take for granted. This idea of appreciating their friends and teammates is connected to our last theme. The last theme of today's video is that of heroism in love, not selfishness. This theme is developed again through the symbol of the symbiote as well as the symbol of Lee's powers. When MJ is affected by the symbiote, she communicates all her inner bitterness towards Peter. She accuses Peter of being selfish and being irresponsible with his own life, with his finances, his job, and his mortgage.
I always come second. I live in your shadow where my dreams turn to dust.
In order to support him being Spider-Man, MJ feels that she is forced to take a job she hates, something that Peter acknowledges he has been selfish in. Similarly, when Miles is being assaulted by Lee's Mr. Negative powers, his subconscious in the form of Genki also accuses him of being selfish, taking his friends for granted instead of loving them. Miles too acknowledges the truth of this to some extent, promising to do better. Perhaps the ultimate example of selfishness is when Peter confronts Harry as Venom. Feeling unappreciated, Harry declares that he has done a lot for Peter, which he doesn't describe in detail but can be seen throughout the game. Harry doesn't mention how he names his foundation after both his mother and Aunt May, or how he considers Peter a co-founder despite Peter not really doing anything. Most of all, Peter is selfish in keeping the symbiote to be a better Spider-Man, when Harry needed the symbiote to stave off the return of his disease. Selfishness is also seen in the villains, such as Kraven's hunt for supervillains. Even though many of the villains are reformed and trying to live out normal lives, Kraven's selfishness in not dying to his cancer ruins many lives of those who are reformed, like Marco or Dr. Connors. His selfishness destroys half the city, and most of all, it leads to the symbiote crisis. Similarly, Harry's selfishness to heal the world and to reconnect with Peter and MJ by turning them into symbiotes results in him turning half the city into symbiotes. In contrast, the heroes learn not to be selfish, but to love. They promise to do better, and they try to love Harry by fighting for him despite Connor's insistence that Harry is too far gone and needs to die. At the end of the game, Peter wants Harry to know that even though he treated Harry poorly, he loves Harry. Even Miles expresses his love by attempting to revive Harry, despite the unlikelihood that this would help. Peter also tries to love MJ and encourage her to follow her dream, rather than to continue to work at the Daily Bugle, which she hates. He also supports her by focusing on work and finances, and lets go of being Spider-Man. In 1 Corinthians, the Apostle Paul describes what true love is like in one of the most famous passages of the Bible. Love is patient and kind. Love does not envy or boast. It is not arrogant or rude. It does not insist on its own way. It is not irritable or resentful. It does not rejoice at wrongdoing, but rejoices with the truth. Love bears all things, believes all things, hopes all things, endures all things. 1 Corinthians chapter 13, verses 4 to 7. Like how Paul describes love, Peter and Miles learn that even if they are heroes, they cannot be selfish about their lives at the expense of those they love. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 uses many different techniques to develop its important themes along with its gameplay in a symbiotic fashion. In the first video, we focused more on themes related to the meaning of being a hero in the perspectives of the Spider-Man. In this video, part 2, we took a look at how the Spider-Men try to be heroic in self-control, trust, teamwork, and love. While comic book superhero narratives, well, by nature, contain grand themes of saving the world, I really appreciated the more personal stories told by the Insomniac team in their renditions of Spider-Man, such as those we explored today. That's all I have for you in this video. Bless you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. If this video blessed you in some way, please consider watching some of my other videos, subscribing, or sharing with me some of your thoughts in the comments below.